we'll sort of do this in not 3 parts as much, but 3 things, 3 aspects. One is there were 2 or 3 main overarching broad questions, okay? And a couple of them have not yet been fully addressed. So I'll start off by asking the panelists this one broad question, and maybe we can hear that from, hear your views on all of you. And, you know, I know we're springing this on you, these questions, but I'm sure it's something you've thought about a lot. So there's 2 or at most 3 such questions. So we'll do that first. If you want to speak up for short things in between, sure, we can do it. Then the questions that have been coming over the last 2 days, as well as from your written forms and the farm retreat that was held in February. What our TAs have done is compiled it into a Padlet here, which has also been categorized into about 5 different buckets. Okay, class size and diversity in settings, engagement and motivation, teaching strategies, alternate assessment methods, and I think the one on the right is specific to sessions. So we'll sort of go up and down, and if any of the panelists want to answer any of them, now maybe we'll just keep one laptop here also, you know, so that you can see it. You don't have to turn back. We don't have a screen there. So we'll sort of have a panelist pick any of their favorite questions from there and address it, and then we can make it open, entirely open, and by then it's okay if the discussion is scattered also. So hope this will work, and let's actually get started. So see, one question that, or one theme that has kept coming up is that of diversity in the class. And like I started yesterday, what we mean by diversity is, you know, you could have a class which is large or small. For some of you, it may be an interdisciplinary course. For others, you may have students from different departments. You know, some courses are like that. We heard a few examples. Others, some of you may have students from the same department, but they may have different backgrounds. For example, in programming-based courses, this is very common. Some students have a lot of experience in programming and others are new. They may not know. First-year students, sometimes you may be surprised, they may have just used their computer for browsing an email in the JEE entrance first year. We had seen that in CS 101 once. People who had participated in Olympiads on the one hand, and at the other end of the spectrum, people who just knew email and browsing, and they were all in the same CS 101 course. It need not be that diverse, but you may see a difference. Or students may have, let's say, third-year students. They may have different interests for what they want to do. So how do you pick the applications? I think we heard something about finance and something else a few minutes ago, but there is that sort of difference. At some point in the course, you may begin to notice different levels of keeping up, levels of understanding. Some people may even be bored, some may just be keeping up, and some students might be struggling and falling behind. So the question to all panelists is, in any of these types of diversity, what are some techniques to address this sort of diversity? You could talk about what you do in class, you could talk about something you do out of class, homework, it doesn't matter. Any aspect of teaching where this diversity is or needs to be addressed.
Yeah, sorry, I did come late. I was waiting for the rains to subside. And after having been in Mumbai for a million years, you should realize you don't wait for the rains to subside. You know, you just decide to get wet by a certain amount and you leave. Anyway, but this is a challenge. It is not just, it's of course, it's computing courses and so on. There is also language diversity. So when I teach undergraduate classes, I know only 2 languages. I am one of those. In India, I think the average person knows at least 3. I am deficient in that regard. I know only English and Hindi. I do slip into say things in Hindi as sometimes. It is not really a technical explanation. It is more to connect with some group of students who may feel more comfortable. I ask the students that, look, if I say a few sentences in Hindi in the classroom, will you feel left out? Because there is also that group which may not understand anything, and they say, no, the teaching is on slides and this thing. But I have so far had only one successful experience with a student who could not follow anything in the class in English. So all the lectures were in English. This was not just in my course, this was in all the courses. But this student was phenomenally hardworking. The slides were available even then. This is way back, well before COVID. There were no recordings of lectures at that time. But he would wake up early. He says, I'm a farmer's son. I'm used to waking up early. He would wake up early, pour through the slides, mark things which he did not understand, and then walk into my office and ask me questions, not just on my course, but also on other courses. Because he said, at least you can help me translate the English. And this fellow did reasonably well. He graduated in the regular amount of time and then went on to do, I think, got a job and everything. But this is completely student driven. This was one very motivated fellow. I don't think I have had as much success with other students. A few students, if you really reach out to them and say, look, I'll be there in my office at this time, just walk in. Very few of them do. The part that I've struggled with, and maybe others can chip in here, is that the ones who are really, really struggling are also hesitant to walk into your office. So another resource that has sometimes worked is mentors. That if the mentor has a good rapport with the student, I've been able to reach out to the mentor and said, you just bring her to my office. No, then I'll have a chat, but at least bring her. And that has worked at times. These are the DAMP mentors. So you have to make that extra effort of identifying who the mentors are. Usually the DAMP coordinators are good. If you tell them that, look, I'm teaching these batches and I think some students are falling behind, I need to know who their mentors are, I need their phone number, I need their email ID, etc., they will share that information. And some of them will do this job, will liaise, or they'll come and say, this person is really scared of you because you shouted in the class the other day and so on. So then you can decide to tune your behavior accordingly. The ones who are doing really well can also be sometimes challenging to deal with, because you are trying to teach to an average. And there are those who are bored, and some of those who are bored will make it very clear that they are bored. They'll make it apparent in the lecture that they are bored. With some of these students, some extra work has helped. Things which were really not part of the curriculum, but you say, look, this is a really tricky problem. Nobody has ever asked it. That's why even I haven't figured it out. Can you figure it out? I've had a couple of such students. They went to other departments, they figured it out. One of them even made some models and gave it to me saying, I think this will help you explain this better to the next batch. So if you're open with them, saying, look, I've always found this concept challenging. Some of them do. So yeah, that is all.
Okay, so my take on this is that instead of looking at diversity as a challenge, can we look at diversity as an opportunity? So this works slightly differently in different courses. So if you take a small class, PG course, okay, so what I taught last semester, that's in there the diversity is diversity of backgrounds that people have, they bring into your class. So they bring a lot of different expertise into the class. And the question that I asked myself was, okay, like all this expertise is there, I'm not the only expert in the class. How do I leverage the expertise in my class to make learning more meaningful for everyone? So it went the project-based learning route, where you form groups such that there is a diversity in each group. So people learn from each other and all of that happens. The other one is the challenge of large class where there is diversity, like CS 101, where some students don't know any programming at all, whereas others have participated in competitions. So again, I think what Preeta said, that has worked for me. The idea of having a very low floor, which means everybody can get onto it, and having wide walls. So this is a very typical expression in some of our CS education research. Having wide walls basically means that different people can work on different types of projects. Like some people are making games, somebody else is making a e-commerce website, somebody else is taking their own startup idea, they brought it into your CS 101 class and they're working on it. So you say it's okay to all of that, and you find some way to give credit to all of them for doing that. So yeah, it doesn't always work. I'm not saying that there is one uniform solution, but I think what helps is if we look at diversity as something we want to tap into. Like many of the students who already knew programming, they were willing to be these tutors, like the language tutors and so on. So I found that in CS 101, if you say that, look, I'm getting bored in class, why don't I become a tutor? So many of them sign up for that tutoring of their peers, because that peer is not in competition with them. See, they won't tutor somebody whom they are in competition with. But a topper is not in competition with a bottomer. The toppers are in competition with themselves, right? So they are okay to tutor bottomers. So that works.
Yeah. So I'll start with one of the points that is made. Diversity problems are diverse, so one solution does not work. So that is the biggest problem. And I found that the academic diversity and diversity in terms of ability is far more easier to address than the other kinds of diversities that we talk about, like linguistic or other social, economic things that happen in the class. But one of the things that we also mentioned in our presentation yesterday is that in tutorials, it is always useful to write everything down so that people who learn at different paces, that diversity can be taken care of. You can set it up in such a way that even the brightest student will still have something to do, and most of the class reaches whatever basic minimum you expect them to, and some who still have difficulty will still find the extra time because everything is available to them, so they can do it. So this is one strategy that has worked for us. Sometimes if the class composition is easily separable into people who know. For example, I had an elective where dual degree students used to join and MTech students used to join. So my assignments for dual degree students, at least first couple of them, was different from what the MTechs got, because they are coming from different background and they are starting at a different place. So you can set it up like that so that you can accommodate some of this diversity. The third one that also helps is, for example, when I used to teach a physical metallurgy course which had people from all background, mechanical, metallurgy, chemical, sometimes even electrical, then what is the basic minimum you expect everybody to know or where you are starting? So you just give a first assignment and tell them that these are stuff you are supposed to know. That is what I am assuming in this class. And if any of you have problem, you need to let me know where. And for those people, then you can give extra material, or you can have a session where you say that I will discuss all these solutions, I'll give you pointers. But in the class, we are going to start assuming that this is given. This kind of self-evaluation for themselves also helps, and then they find somebody with whom they are comfortable, from whom they can learn. So that is, again, is possible. I have tried and sometimes it has worked well. But the social diversity is harder. And on a lighter note, I speak in Hindi sometimes in the class.
Also to entertain.
Also to entertain and to make them realize that, all of us make mistakes and some of them make a lot more than others. So
I think a lot of things have been covered already. One thing which I have found helpful is to have periodic feedback questionnaires in the class, just to make myself as an instructor aware of how things are going. So have pointed questions where at least I know whether there is an issue with the pace, whether there's an issue with the language, do you want a help session? These are again anonymous because people are very shy of coming out and speaking about this. The other thing is group activities, especially in the medium-sized classes. The groups help a lot in these language barriers. So I've had groups where they can converse in any language that they want, whatever they are comfortable with. But the response they have to give is in English, so they have to tutor each other in doing that. The other thing which I have tried, which worked in a group activity, is that the assignment is given to groups, but anyone at random would be picked to solve it on the board. This is a little intense for the students. I got this feedback. But they taught each other. They told me they were in the library the previous night because all of them wanted to ensure that the group member knew what was being taught about. But they did tell me they found it a little intense, so I've toned that down a little bit. And for the large classes, the TAs have been very instrumental. So the feedbacks are also handed to the TAs who take it to their smaller groups. I've had a TA actually reach out to me saying that there's a student who is under tremendous stress, having issues coping with the content. And my TA herself had a bio background and was a TA for chemistry. So she was talking to this guy and telling me, hey, I'm a TA for this course. I'm supposed to know everything. It's very stressful for me myself. And that sort of bond seemed to help. So I think this bonding with TAs seems to work quite a bit with some hand holding from the mentor. So that's one strategy which I have found useful.
I'm assuming some of these points were already covered. Nandita herself was talking about the last one that she was talking about was related to getting anonymous feedback. So I'm assuming you've told them about sharing, just distributing chits of paper, muddy points, clear points, muddy points. So that's a very effective strategy which works for any size of class, especially for larger classes, because again it's anonymous. And you just have to ensure that the TAs know about this and they are handing out these chits. If it's a small class, you can hand it out yourself. And collecting it. And it doesn't take too long to go through those chits. The where I first heard about it was in Jeff Freud's workshop. It's a very good strategy where you don't have to do it every class, but maybe every week, maybe once in 2 weeks or something. These things are very, very helpful. So everybody is just, without identifying themselves, they're putting down, okay, this stuff I'm very clear about. That other thing I'm not clear about. That really helps you as an instructor to come back in the next lecture and talk about it or design a problem which clarifies that. And I'm assuming for diversity, as Guru was talking, you try and form peer groups. So, and one has to be a little involved there. You have to know how each group is sort of working, and of course TAs are helpful in doing that. Whether everybody is sort of on board or not. But those peer instruction is hugely beneficial.
I think most of the points have been covered, and my usual modus operandi is not go for the smartest way, but probably I don't have smart ways to deal with these really, really complex problems. I think so. In our course, what I forgot to mention was that how the group pairings are. As I told you, like most these guys who are coming into the 6 semesters, some of them are already doing their IUR minors, some are doing some math minors, CS minors, and then there are some who just want to get by, just want to finish their degree in 4 years. So making sure that, and that was one of the reasons why I decided to make the course completely project-based, because then pairing people accordingly, some who know what they're doing, some who want to learn. The first time when we paired people, there was a lot of pushback, because I think at the end of the day, everyone's concerned about their grade. Why am I getting paired with someone I don't want to be paired with? But I think the second time around, when the people who took the course for the first time around, they became the TAs, it was easier to communicate to them. I think one of the things that has helped me in addressing, most of the issues related with diversity are also, I think there's no shortcut for communication. I think you have to communicate to your students. some of them, I think if you, I don't know how easy or hard it is for an individual, but if you can make things relatable, I think they do kind of flock towards you. Some of them have come to me with certain personal issues, certain other things that they are encountering, trying to either work with their team or other academic or non-academic things, which then you can eventually find avenues for them if they are not themselves are shy to do. Like one of the person, for example, and as Preeta said, it is driven by personal motivation. Like I told you, the student who I was willing to personally offer 2 hours every week to tutor him because they had hearing impairment and speech impairment and were not able to follow what I was doing in class. Once they realized there were no exams in the class, they just stopped coming, even though there was extra effort being put in by the instructor. So I think there is that personal motivation goes a long way. And on the other hand, there was another student who was probably not dealing with as much difficulty, but was still struggling, but was willing to put in a lot of time. And I think they did a really, really great project, which is going to get published in another undergrad journal. So there are all these things. I think at the end of the day, communication is the key for me. But there is no, there's no substitute for personal motivation from the student. If the student somehow, whether it is through mentors that they can be motivated to do something about the problem, that that don't be lost because you think there is nothing available. There are people who are willing to help you, but you need to take the first step. I don't have a smart solution. I think it has to be kind of a brute force approach.
So I'm going to be wearing multiple hats. Okay, that's why I came here inside. I want to share one strategy that I've used, but it actually originated in a very different setting, and that's in an online course. But it can be easily translated to a face-to-face course. And there is this idea called learning extension resources. Learning extension trajectories in MOOCs, in the massive open online courses, where the diversity is huge, much, much more than what we will see in our own classes. Diversity of language, of why people have enrolled for it, their backgrounds and interests, of course, and all. So what we do there is, for assignments, even medium-sized assignments, we identify, let's say, 3 or 4 cohorts which are which have some characteristics. For it could be something like students who don't have the prerequisites and students who want to do very advanced things. That's one kind of categorization. The other kind could be language. The third one could be if there are applications we have to give. Let's say some people would want an application in this subject and somebody else in a different topic. And then we create 3 different versions of the assignment for each of these cohorts that we have identified based on input surveys and all. And each group, any student needs to only do one of these assignments. So instead of everybody doing one single assignment, we have 3 different versions. So there are 3 trajectories for that assignment. So in MOOCs, this has worked very well, and I've tried it in a very small face-to-face class also. So this was a PhD level class, and something about designing of technology-enhanced learning environments. So the trajectories was one assignment was they had to read 3 papers and write a summary paper based on those 3. There were some who really wanted to read, and the others actually had to write a design paper as a term. So this was sort of a mid-sem type of term paper. So this trajectories idea is another way to address diversity if you know who these cohorts are.
What I wanted to ask is, how do you decide grading uniformity if there are different trajectories and different assessment sort of?
it can't be identical because the assignment itself is different, but usually we have rubrics for those, and at an abstract level the rubrics criteria might be similar. For example, has the analysis taken care of all the different types of items? And it could be as simple as you post 3 papers and students are supposed to read and analyze one of the 3 papers. If the nature of the assignments are widely different, like one is an analysis, one is a design, you can't have the same identical rubric items either, but what you can do there is to make these rubrics very transparent, and students know what they'll be graded on before, so they can even choose their assignment based on that.
Okay. So one more question for the panel. So Nandita mentioned that you get students to come and solve problems on the board. So how do you address hesitation and sort of issues that some people who don't want to get up and come out and do this?
So initially I was doing the individuals coming up to the board. Later on I started asking them to give the solution of their team, their group. So that reduces the stress, because if they're wrong, it's not they themselves who are responsible for the wrong answer.
Another thing that works, Shyam, is to have some way of randomly picking. Even term papers when I give students with different backgrounds, and then they feel that no, you gave me, I am from physics and you're giving me a metallurgy topic kind of things. So we randomize and we show that this is random allocation. So whatever you get, then students don't have a problem most of the times. It's only the feeling that I got picked irritates them. If it is random, okay.
So I was just thinking about the different trajectories that you mentioned. If you have a diversity in language, how does that help with these trajectories?
So there we actually did translations in the MOOC. I haven't done the languages in a face-to-face class, but in the MOOCs we had 2 or 3 different languages. I don't remember exactly, but one of the persons who was a co-instructor, he was a PhD student then, and now he's at NPTEL. He's a research scientist in IIT Madras. So he had worked on the language thing, and I think more, not just English and Hindi. There was a co-instructor on that, you remember?
Yeah, so in a MOOC, actually, it becomes a little easier because you find a lot of expertise in your class itself. Like I was saying, exploit the expertise that's there in the class. So in a MOOC, what happened was, like, there was one Gujarati instructor who actually got the content and was willing to participate as the translator for everybody who needs to learn it in Gujarati. So that way, that used to happen in that manner.
I have seen being done at IIT. This Professor Phatak used to do it when he used to run CS 101, specifically language related. He had like 50 TAs. I think CS 101 has that many TAs, and you'd inevitably find people, speaking Gujarati, Marathi, Bengali. So one Saturday each month, there used to be parallel tutorial sessions in different languages. So maybe 10 different languages, the Telugu group, the Tamil group, Bengali group, and all that. And so this was done over 2 or 3 years.
And I had another question about the grouping that you were talking about. So you want it to be a diverse grouping. How do you ensure that happens? Like, what do you need to know about the students and their interests? Like, you had mentioned that there are people who already want to go in this area, the people who don't want to go in this area. How do you evaluate that particular motivation, or what is your criteria for making the groups?
So I can talk about how we teach a lab. I teach the mechanical testing lab. So one of the ways we make the group is we look at the CPI and we deliberately make groups. I think Sridhar had talked about this, that the really people with really high CPI and with really low CPI, and we deliberately make a group out of them. And we do get this grumblings that can we make our own group, and we tell them that no, working in this group is part of learning.
But does it help? Because the problem that I see sometimes is that the high CPI student is also
they take over.
Active, yeah.
Yeah.
And the low CPI student. I'm asking specifically because we have conducted a lab with just 2 people. It's not even 3 that, it offsets the balance. So that way, one of the feedback from the students was that it's better to pair off low CPI together because they'll be forced to at least work, and then they might learn more, as opposed to being paired with a high CPA student?
So then I think it depends on how you conduct the evaluation. If you say that, look, I'm going to be talking to the two of you and I'm evaluating the group,
Okay.
right? So in which case, this, what Nandita was saying, that your partner should also learn to a certain extent. Of course, you cannot penalize the person who's working really hard if they are stuck with a partner who just doesn't want to do anything. But you can at least mandate a certain level, which will come from a group evaluation. That I'll evaluate the group and I will see how well the group understands this aspect of the problem.
I'm a little unclear about the evaluation bit. So if in case you're evaluating the group's performance, then segregating what each individual has done, how does that work out? I don't think I understand how the logistics of that happen.
When I evaluate, I don't segregate. We tell them that you have done both. Sorry. You have both done. This is the expectation. And irrespective of who the person I asked, you should be able to answer. Which means if one person has done, it is his or her responsibility to teach the other person. So that at the end of it, if I ask any one of them, they should be able to answer. What Preeta is saying is that cannot be very high. You have to set a basic minimum so that much is at least taught.
Just to follow up on that, one thing which I've tried is in the class where there is a group presentation, have the bare minimum thing. In addition, in the question paper or exam that you have some component of the group work as part of the question where each individual is tested on their understanding. So that's one assessment model I've tried.
So since this group formation came up, this is an instance that I know 2 other people have tried. I haven't tried it. This is in lab-based courses. People use inventories like MBTI, the Myers-Briggs inventory, to select. It's one of these personality type of tests that is used a lot among management and corporates, where one of you may be an inventor, one of you may be the reflector. And Amarnath from Mechanical used to use it in these large project-based labs. He's retired now. Right now, I know Pradeep Sareen from Physics he also does very open-ended labs. He also uses some such inventory to find 3 students. Each one has one of these characteristics and does formal pairing. So it's not CPI-based, but what they can bring to the lab work.
A lot of questions.
Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so let me do we want to just move to the Padlet directly? Yeah, let's do it. It's 12:15, no? Let's do one thing. I'll keep one laptop here. We can see, any of the panelists can see, and I've also sent it to all of you. Pick any question you want to, and Sonika, when that question is asked, just scroll up, down, left, right.
Okay, so I think the first column of class size, diversity in setting, I think most of the questions we've talked about. I just have one more point to add to that. So often as instructors, we are worrying about these outliers, these 2-3 students who are not participating and trying to bring everybody into the class. So that is actually not a great approach. So generally the thumb rule here is, if 80% of your class is getting 80% of what you want them to get, you are doing really well. Okay, so don't worry too much if you're not able to engage the entire class. Some part of the class will be disengaged no matter what you do. Okay, so that's okay. I think that's one point, about these large classes. How does one balance different levels of students? How to make the topic interesting? So, yeah. How to attract students to class in 4th year when they are busy in pre-placement talks, exams every day? If anybody figures that out, please let me know.
So I actually wanted to ask a slightly broader version of this, which is also there in the Padlet. How do you get students to care about learning in addition to grades? There it says instead of running after grades. I don't know if it's instead, but if any, that sort of covers a lot of the questions under engagement and motivation. The most extreme one is the 4th year in placement.
So how do you
How do you get students to care? No, how do you get them to care about learning of the material, learning about practices, skills, not just about grades?
Right, yeah. But again, right. So motivational stuff. And I'm sure other people have shared this. Every instance or every opportunity that you get, you try and find related examples from things of whatever you're teaching. Try and find examples that they can relate to. That helps bring more people in. Right. So, one of the things that I heard when Guru was speaking was, okay, materials thermodynamics. So why do we care about materials thermodynamics? So then you bring in ideas of energy. What is energy? Why are we looking for the minimum energy solution? So look for ways that you can explain this concept. In things like optimization, I try and share visualizations. So you say, okay, you're on a hike. This is what the terrain looks like. So when I say I want to get to the minimum, what's the best way to get to the minimum? So what does this mean? I want to go to the deepest point in the valley. So what path makes sense? So what works for me is sharing visualizations, and this you play to your strengths. So whatever strategies that you can come up with to help your students relate what you're teaching to other stuff that they will be familiar with from their interests or from just day-to-day engaging with the world. It's a fairly vague answer, but so the main message is try and find ways of pulling them in. So and that will keep changing. That just keeps changing. So showing them Dead Poet Society. I mean, this current generation, they will have no clue. They will have no clue. But maybe they will.
I'm not like this.
Orientation should be.
No, and honestly, like one of.
Let's get together in convocation hall and watch that.
I mean, this was, I just started this experiment as an afterthought to this class that I was kind of doing. But I think we started having a Saturday movie evenings where it just turned out that the kids wanted to do it because this was, once they realized that, they're doing something for which they're not being judged. And in a silent room, they can absorb whatever they want to absorb. It's always been one struggle that you can tell them whatever you want to tell them, but they're going back to a hostel of 1,400 other peers where they'll, whatever you told them is going to get quashed by. So this needs to happen again and again and again and again. So the kind of, as I said, the kind of movies I show them is like Dead Poet Society, Randy Pausch's last lecture, October Sky. And they silently absorb certain things, which they may or may not tell you, but it stays with them. Field visits have worked wonders for me. When I take them out to, people who are really solving challenging problems. And problems, they may not care about why they're going to a central railway control room, but once that person starts talking about problems that they encounter, and especially relating it to the suburban travel, what these guys can relate to. And, it kind of motivates them to think about certain number of those things, especially when they put that into perspective in terms of the cost savings and the GDP growth. These kids may not care about much, but when you start talking in terms of millions and billions of dollars, it'll get their attention. So Yeah, I mean, I think field visits have worked wonders for me to get them excited about important problems, learning. Um, all these kind of, yeah, these activities really help at the end of the day.
No, I'm going to say something which is almost considered heretical now, which is that I think making attendance mandatory, it helps. And I used to not do it in UG core courses. I had also subscribed to this, well, you try to teach well and students will come if they want to come. Until I had a conversation with some students who said that, look, there are only a few students who are consciously making this choice that, oh, I don't want to go to this course because either I know it or I don't care about it or the teacher is lousy or whatever. He said, most of the rest of us, I come out of my room and then somebody puts his arm around my shoulder and said, kya karega class jaake, chal. And then I go. And once this happens 2 or 3 times, especially if it happens 2 or 3 times in succession, then they're kind of lost, even if they come to class. And then they become hesitant to come to class. So the student said, देखिए आप compulsory कर देंगी ना, तो हम चाहे आपको गालियाँ दे के आएंगे, लेकिन हम आ जाएंगे class में. And once they are in class, even if they listen to half of what you say, and then they absorb half of what they've listened to, they are kind of in touch with what is going on. And then there are tutorial problems which force them to go back and review what has been done, and they kind of stay on course. So for undergraduate courses, when I teach, I do make attendance mandatory. I tell them frankly, I say, I know this is going to make you hate me, but I am still going to do it. Of course, I sort of set the bar a little higher at the beginning and then maybe lower it a little bit later and so on. But they know that this is going to stop here. It's not that I will not act on what I said. Because if you do that also, they find out from their seniors and then they don't take you seriously. So I do this, and I don't know. I think I should go back and check whether it works or it doesn't work. But yeah.
I'm just going to tell a few things that I have thought about and I've also tried and worked, and some which didn't work, so that you can look at different classes and decide. Sometimes the students are not engaged because they don't have the complete mapping of what is going to happen in the course, so they are lost. So what is very helpful is at the beginning, the very first lecture, I actually flash some 25 questions. I say that we are going to find either answers to these questions or a way to find answers to these questions after we do this course. And at that point, it is just to prime them to what is going to happen, so that, this is in the data analysis and interpretation course, so you are talking about some expectation or maximum likelihood. They should not get, or even if that is boring, they should still see why they have to go through. So that is one thing that helps. Sometimes if it is a master's elective, I have also given a paper to them in the very first class, telling them that we want to understand. Now you need to know some variational calculus, some group theory, some crystallography, some thermodynamics, and some numerical methods. Without that, you can't understand the paper. So the course is going to do these. And that is one thing that helps motivate most of the students. The second thing which I learned, again, Freud's this thing when we did the course, I did not know that there are different ways in which people understand the same thing. Apparently, there are geometrical thinkers and algebraic thinkers. And if the instructor is algebraic, the students who are geometrically thinking have difficulty in following, and so on. After I heard that, it made lots of sense to me why sometimes, things that I think should be clear to students is not clear to them, or sometimes students ask a question that is not clear to me. So this also gave me an idea that if you have a class in which you have some 25 students who are sitting, some of them are interested in mathematics. Some of them are interested in programming. Some of them are interested in the physics, chemistry, or materials aspect of it. So pointing out that the course that you are doing can cater to different needs, and telling them that, you do this course, but you can have this emphasis and learn this aspect, and making sure that your evaluation and the material that you deliver will cater to all these aspects is another way in which you can get much better engagement in the class throughout the semester. So these are a couple of things that you can try. I even, in the data analysis course, I used to show clippings of Michael Jordan giving that new engineering thing is coming up and things like that, just to motivate them, that what you are learning and why you should know and what we are going to do and so on.
So regarding the questions, there are 2 points on engaging learners in large classes that I wanted to add. One is that autonomy seems to improve the motivation. So certain things that you do in class, if you have students some say in it, like how you're running the class, you can take a poll on certain things that you think. You can say, I'm deciding between these things, but depending on what you guys want, I will pick this method. So if we go with some sort of say that the students have in the mode that you're using for the lecture delivery, they seem to be a little more invested in the process. That is one thing which I have observed. The other thing is something which I have not tried. There was a session on motivation and someone had pointed this out and I completely forgot about it until now. But I think it's something worthwhile trying, so I thought I'll share with you all. One thing which can be done in the very first class is to ask people why they think this content could play a role in their life in general. So where they had to themselves think of a point, whatever it could be with the content that could be useful in the long run for them. And you can collate these responses and share it with students. I have personally not tried this, but I think this is something I will try out. So I just remembered that when this discussion was going on.
So I'll just respond to Nandita's point. So I've tried that idea. Okay, it backfired terribly on me. Okay, so 1 year I was teaching the departmental introductory course. And this is, everybody knows, right? The first course that they take in the department. So this is in CS. And I did this survey, what is it that you want, one thing that you want to learn kind of thing. And they said nothing. Okay, they said, so 30% of the class said, I'm not interested in anything technical. Okay, this is the second year, first departmental introductory course. Okay, so, I mean, I was aghast. The department was aghast, huh? This is in CS, yeah. Okay. Okay, so what are you interested in? I want to go into financial management. I want to go into that. So CS guys want to become managers. Okay. Other guys want to become CS guys. So that chain seems to go on, right? And managers want to become entrepreneurs, billionaires, whatever it is. So it became a challenge. So I've asked them the question. They've given me an honest answer. What do I do with the answer? Right? So then it became a real challenge to keep connecting back to that. So all the examples I had to then change to come at it from the finance angle. Saying that, okay, those of you who are going into finance, I know that 30% of them want to do that. Okay, so for those of you who are interested in this algorithm you need to know because it applies, it will come in later handy and then they'll pay some attention to it. So yeah, it's a tricky thing.
So just to add on that thread, I have tried this in elective classes. It was actually a department elective, but I had a lot of BTechs and MTechs from other departments who wanted to come. So the question I asked is, why do you want to take this course? My goal at that point was to actually try to discourage those who were just signing up because they knew it was an easy A and all that. It was primarily for our department, MTech and PhD students. But what it helped with was this motivation and me learning what they actually care about. So they all had to write like a one-page essay, which did drive out some people, rightly so. Just a one-page thing, but it gave a list of things, and I did this year after year. Each year, the set of responses were different. So the course was slightly different each year. But you can think of it as an elective course with small numbers. I don't know how it will work in a large mandatory course. But it did, so that may be the difference with, your DIC. But this question gave me a lot of useful information, and they also felt that, okay, the teachers talking to their interests. I had about 5 students 1 year who were master's students in variety of departments, aerospace, MEMS and all, but they were all from the Air Force. They were in the training division in the Air Force. So that's why they had come to the educational technology class. So they felt, okay, we can take this back to our Air Force when we go back. So, yeah.
My question along those lines is, there are some subjects which are, inherently dry, or which you cannot relate to what 30% of the class is eventually interested in. Like, for example, how would you possibly relate boundary layer theory to finance? What are your thoughts on those topics in particular?
Strategy, which is to say that you emphasize that in your course, they're going to learn how to analyze a system in sufficient detail. And that is a very useful skill that will help them no matter what field they eventually go to. What they're learning is analysis, right? Or whatever you think the strength is of the methodology.
Some areas are things that most of the class can identify. For example, cricket. If it is boundary layer theory, for example, right? So sports, movies, entertainment. So these are things irrespective of what they're actually, music, for example. I have found students respond very nicely to discussions on music in the modeling and analysis course, for example. So some common topics are there which most students can identify. And in cases where you cannot motivate, then those are the ones where I try to pick examples, which works nicely.
In general, I mean, this is kind of continuation of what Arpita said. Has in the past, having some industry person who does a lot of dollar value out of his knowledge, bringing him for a lecture or so, and making kind of, if he says that these concepts were useful, has that worked in the past or backfired?
Yeah, I've tried it. So it has worked. So one time, for example, I had somebody from Google come in a data structures course and talk about like what is happening really, why this data structure is important. So the thing is, you have to be very careful about the industry person whom you choose. Okay, so they have to be technical. So then it works. On the other hand, if you choose somebody who is kind of superficial and then they'll say, "Haan, ye sab chalta hai, no need to really bother." Right? Then it'll backfire. So
okay, thanks.
The other difference, very quick answer, is I've seen it work better in a master's level course than in a second year UG course. I'm not generalizing, but it has a higher tendency to work perhaps in a master's level course.
See, another thing that has worked again in master's level courses is that we often get MTech students who have worked for some time and then either quit or their companies have allowed them to come. Asking them this question, what is in this for you? Why is this useful? That usually gets very mature answers. Because these are people who have actually seen value, not in general in the MTech program, but in the courses also they pick, especially the ones who are sponsored by the companies. They're very careful about which courses they're doing. They kind of see where this fits in. And they bring in that perspective which even I don't have. They'll say, look, I come from this manufacturing company and this is the kind of problem that we've been dealing with. And I think if I learn a little bit of this, I can probably go back and apply. That makes the class very interesting for everybody else. But you have to identify those people.
Just continuing on, one more example that I used to give and which used to motivate students a lot is related to some archaeo or history related stuff. There are some Spanish gold, they are not actually gold, but only upper layer, some copper has been removed and so on. So these things, if you tell students, or some Roman cup which looks some color because of nano gold. So what you want to convey is some Gibbs Thompson effect. But you start with this, you show this picture, you tell them a story. Somebody was talking about telling stories in the class yesterday. So some 5 minutes on things which you think that most of the students will become curious about, and then take off from there. Later, whatever I did might not be actually answering that question, but that there is this connection itself helps them.
So I was just going through the Padlet, and except one or two questions, I think most of them have been addressed somewhere or the other. So if maybe we can just open it up for the next 10 minutes. Gulmohar said lunch will come early, so we don't have to wait till 1. But if there's any, scattered ideas, I think somebody, Tanu, maybe was saying that you have a lot of questions to ask, or if I don't know, I didn't mean to pick on you, but somebody in the group that you were part of. So any odd questions that we haven't addressed?
So there was one point here in this Padlet about lab courses, and I'm from the Metallurgical Engineering and Material Science department, and our labs are always, Tanu is in the thick of it right now. Our labs are resource intensive. I can't put 60 computers in a room and say, here, everybody can have a hands-on experience. We need machines, we need consumables, and so on. And they're always in a short supply. Our undergraduate classes are about 120 to 140 in size. And we struggle with how do you give them enough of a hands-on exposure while completing labs in a reasonable amount of time, because students have very, very tight schedules. You can't have labs extending to 3.5 hours or 4 hours and so on. So if there are experiences on how to deal with this for these class sizes, I would appreciate any ideas.
Who are handling it. So we have similar issues, and our batch size doing an experiment is 6. And we wanted to bring it down to 3 so that everyone can do meaningful stuff. But then run 2 batches a session or 4 batches a session and things like that. So I don't think any other ways are possible.
It's not possible because they had to prepare the lab for half a day before the experiment could happen. Like costing, for example, if they had to prepare, and that's it. So yes.
Yeah, just one colleague from CS was telling me that prior to when he starts course, he records some prerequisite, and if he sees some students don't know stuff, he requests them to go back and check. So how has this worked for in general, or how is this strategy work?
Okay, I mean, even in courses where they are supposed to know, this happened accidentally. I was running a mid-sem exam and my colleague was also running his. And so he was looking at my question paper and said, Guru, this I have taught in the thermodynamics course. But in the class when I asked, they said it was not taught. So I ended up spending time teaching. So I asked the question. So even though prerequisites are there, and we expect them to know, even when they are doing courses in chronological order, they tend to forget, or they think that if I say I know, because students are also clever. Null hypothesis is the best, right? Don't say yes, because then how much you know, what he's going to ask, all that becomes a problem. So the prerequisite thing, if you have material, it doesn't even have to be your own recording. Some set of tutorial sheets, some set of problems, or some other course or textbook you have, you can tell them this is the level at which I expect. Here is a questionnaire, you try to answer it yourself. And if you are not on par, you just make it up. That helps, but limited. It goes back to student motivation, how much they want to do. So,
thanks.
I think to teach online. So yeah, I think it was you. Let's blame you for now. So what Sridhar had pointed out was that, even before you jump and start recording your own thing, there's a lot of good stuff out there. So having your own collection of where you think certain things have been explained well, that helps. And I do it throughout my class. I mean, I will put those links in my slides and say, look, I have explained this. but this person has, I think, done an even better job than me, and you can go back and look at their video. Or sometimes there are videos of experiments that have been done that sort of supplement the theory that you've been trying to teach. So you can either show it in class, or you can say you go back and look at it. And in terms of this material that they should know, in most of my courses, the first couple of tutorials are to say, look, I just want to figure out where everybody is. This is stuff that I expect that you should know, but I still want to check where you are in knowing this stuff. And then, depending on the class size, if it's a small class and it's an elective, your time pressure is less, you can go back and review. But if it's a core course and you are already short of time, then again you say, look, I found that half the class needs to do better or needs to refresh these things, and here is a set of resources. So that helps.
And for these computational ones, spoken tutorials are wonderful. Yeah, so.
For the first year class, actually, the way the scheduling is done by the academic section, when we have the first tutorial, we have not done enough classes. So we do a tutorial 0 where we upload content beforehand, and this is sort of prerequisites for the course. So that is, the tutorial 0 is the first tutorial where we ensure students are doing this.
I have a question regarding this lab-based teaching. And when you have a very large class, and when if it is resource intensive, it's not possible that every student gets to do the experiment. Most of them just see the things, somebody takes the readings and stuff like that. But to supplement that, can we have a simulated experiment? Like I think some IITs had launched this a few years back, but that was very basic.
Virtual labs.
Sorry?
Virtual labs.
Virtual labs. Yeah. So can the students, every student can then go ahead, use this computer, play with that experiment, change the cross section, change stuff, and then he gets a noisy data. Like yesterday we discussed about having data which is having some noise, and how do you clear that? So can we have something like that, and is there something available? Because whatever we have right now, as far as civil engineering is concerned and structural engineering per se, is very basic and not adequate, doesn't represent an experiment in a lab.
My answer is yes and no. Yes, because we have resource difficulties, so it will help. No, because there is this article about Satish Dhawan when he went to US for his PhD, and how surprised they were that an Indian student was doing things by hand. I think our students are already, in spite of being called engineers, have very little hands-on real life experience. From that point of view, we are doing more and more disservice, because everything now looks like a computer screen. See, melting 15 kilograms of steel and pouring, even if you are watching, is different in live than when you are actually seeing it on screen. So that experience they should see. The field visit they were talking about. I'm not from metallurgy. I sort of roamed into metallurgy. So when I first time went and saw this steel plant, the blast furnace, the experience that it creates, the understanding that you have about the field is very different. So field visits that way give you a feel for your subject. So those things are missing if we just do it on computer. I mean, that way I would say no. We should still try to do it as much as possible with physical, real experiments. But yes, if things are difficult, then this is the second best alternative that you can take. Yeah.
So just wanted to ask in general, what are some of the interesting tools that you use in your lectures? Like one thing I didn't know was the Mentimeter. And similar, are there things that are very effective in communicating? Okay. So this populates based on the feedback the students instantly give.
So this works when you want multiple people to write something. It's just a link you share. It's like a wall with post-its. Whoever you invite, you can even make the link public. People just come, then you can drag and drop and all.
And this is something that you can outsource to the TAs. They are very good at finding such tools. So that's what we do.
Now.
In our education technology tools lab, it's pretty much run by the TAs. They go find these new tools, we experiment with them, and then we bring it into the class. So Mentimeter, Padlet, I didn't find them. My TAs found them. And that's how we used it. So outsourcing is the other thing that is very useful to outsource to TAs is to find these other resources. No, like what Preeta was saying, that whether it is for prerequisite or whether it is for engagement, no, you should outsource a lot of your work to YouTube. Anyway, they are watching YouTube. So let them do your work by watching YouTube of what you want them to watch. So again, here the TAs are very valuable. So they'll find the correct videos. All you have to say is, okay, look at this video. Of course, I got a lot of flack for saying that, by the way.
I like the idea.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah, I do that for my course. Coming back to that prerequisites question. So I want them to not just learn what linear algebra they've learned in their first year, but what real linear algebra is. So I give them a sheet of questions which if they can answer honestly, they should think they're prepared for the course. And this is for my elective, not for my core. And if they don't, then I'll just share the 3 blue, 1 brown essence of linear algebra playlist with them. There are students who have come back to me saying that, yeah, nobody's taught them linear algebra that way. It's hard for an instructor because not everyone is that good at visualizations. So yeah, if someone is, has a skill and is doing a great job, why not use it?
In addition to these, Kahoot is another thing for using games in class, but the free version has a limit of 50 students. So if you have a class size which is small, Kahoot is one thing you can try. I have tried something called Team Maker to make teams, but that doesn't exist anymore. But I'm sure there is something equivalent to that if you Google it, where if you put criteria in, it automatically generates teams. So you just upload a sheet and it generates teams, yeah.
One more thing that I had done, and this was very long back, 10, 12 years ago, is to have a WordPress post where students could give anonymous feedback after lectures. Like Nandita said, you should be willing to take some amount of, because it is anonymous, they will say whatever. But that dies down quickly, especially if you don't go back to the class and shout about what nonsense they wrote. In 2-3, it goes away. Then whatever you get are proper feedback, and you can get it, after lectures. So that way anonymous feedback is useful. So
Okay, so I think it's getting close to 1. It's 10 to 1. What we'll do is, if you have any question, that's fine. But it'll be nice to hear from each of you, or as many of you as possible, about one thing that you think you can try in your classes, either based on what you heard now or over the last 2 days. And one technique, one tool, one strategy. I also have a vested interest in asking this, because if you actually want to try some active learning technique that Nandita mentioned today or so, and if it's working for you, PPCCLT would like to come to your class and actually take maybe a short video clip and use it as a resource next year, put it up on our channel. Alternately, if it's not working, we can even consider doing some sort of a clinic in a couple of months. One of you suggested this idea that let's do something towards the end of the semester and see what did not work and see how to improve that. So you have the mic, you can start and just go around. I'm not going to enforce the each one say one, but we do have this in my small classes. We just send a mic and say each one say one.
I will answer your question, but can I ask one question? So my question is to Guru, and you mentioned about algebraic thinking versus geometric thinking. Is there, do you have any statistics of IIT students, which category they fall, and what is the difference between them?
Feeling, I could be wrong. Anecdotally, I think most people are algebraic. There are, he was talking about linear algebra. Kumaresan has a book, right? Geometric linear algebra. So some of these ideas, geometry ideas, are not that common, even though I think they were earlier common. But the current curriculum that we have, the way we are trained, even the way I was trained, this is what I realized, because my algebraic intuition is really bad. So no wonder some of my students had difficulty. So that lot which had difficulty is smaller. So that is why I'm saying anecdotally, I feel that algebraic is more because of training probably. But even the algebraic ones, when we get that geometric feel, it's very different. In fact, Freud's suggestion was that you should first identify what type of person you are and you should try the other one. So now I have some complex analysis and linear algebra, but with geometric things built in, just to, also look at it from that point of view for myself. But this is my feeling, but others, he probably can answer better. So
I'm the other way around. I'm more geometric than algebraic. But I think, so again, I think going to grad school, I was definitely way more geometric than I was algebraic. And some algebraic training was drilled into me when I was, my advisor was way more algebraic. So yeah, but then I think my experience with students has been the other way. Like they, especially with optimization problems, I mean, they like to think of everything in 3 dimensions. It's hard for them to sort of, especially with the problem that they're struggling with, they just kind of start thinking about that problem in 3 dimensions. I think there is automatically a geometric switch that kind of switches on, but when it comes to sort of more abstract stuff, I think people are mostly algebraic in nature. I mean, it's hard to get that geometric insight.
Maybe I'll now answer the question that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just.
So I think the 2 days were really fantastic. I mean, thanks to all of you for this wonderful session. But few things which I really will take and will try to implement is, first of all, yesterday's the Bloom's taxonomy part. Although I've heard this before but never really thought of implementing, because the semester is starting next week. So this is probably the right time to have this program, and some of these things are very fresh, so I can try and implement. And the other thing which you mentioned about doing it for chapter wise or topic wise, I think that will also give me clarity on what I should be focusing on. So that's one thing which I really liked. The other thing was, in today's session, of course, the way you conduct the evaluation scheme itself was very new to me. And I think what I saw in previous years, of course I'm here only for 1 year, but then what I saw in the first year batch, when I taught the first year batch, was that the topics were already there, in their JE preparation, so they found it very boring. And some of them were really doing very well with the concepts, but never being able to do well in the exams, because they knew the concept but did not know how to convert that into a proper solution. There were other type of students who knew the method, but never knew how to convert that problem into the solvable method. So then I thought, what you were suggesting today, that we should not judge everybody with the same kind of a metric. So that would be nice, and I don't know how I'll implement that, but I think that is something which I'll definitely try. But the Mentimeter is something, getting continuous feedback. I think that's something I'd definitely like to try. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anything you want to share? What you will try?
Yeah, thank you for giving this much information. So I have so far not taught any class. I'm quite new to it. So I'll also try to include some of these things. And one thing which I particularly realized is that like the feedback is very important. Like you need to have a continuous feedback from the students to understand where, like what they are thinking or which direction you should take. This is one thing which I think I'll give it much more importance.
Thank you everyone, and this is also the first semester I will be teaching. So one thing I like is, like, in between activity, like 2-minute break or 3 minute, to engage them, to go to them and talk to them what you are doing, and giving them some problems, short problems, they try to solve it there, and then you take that problem to the lectures also. That will help a lot, and taking feedbacks also after the classes is also that things I will going to implement.
We'll start from here and get that mic.
Hi, so thank you for having this session. Last semester in my course, the course I taught, we had a project component. So based on this workshop, I would probably make a couple of changes to that. One is increase the weightage. So we had like 20% weightage, so maybe increase that to 40 to 50%. That's one thing that I'll probably change. The second thing is to meet with student, like at least weekly or bi-weekly meetings, because last time we only met them just 2 times. Like there is a mid-semester meeting and then the final presentation. So that's 2 things that I'll change. And then definitely I'll use the Mentimeter, maybe in the form of in-class participation implemented in Moodle, something like that. So yeah.
So thank you for this wonderful workshop. I really found it very useful. So I really like the idea where it was told, or the discussion is, we should learn to break down the lectures, have activities in between, so that we need constant engagement of the students. So this was something which was a little difficult for me during the last semester, where I was teaching a 1.5 hour course, where I keep losing the attention of the students, and also taking constant feedback from them using this Mentimeter is something really new to me, and I will try to implement it in the upcoming semester.
Yeah. Thanks.
So thank you once again for organizing this program, and this is the first time I am going to teach, and I'm preparing for my course, and I'm confused in many ways. But the main takeaway I would have from this program today is that, so in the panel, like they said, so I'm also trying to find a motivation why students should take this course, and that's something which I have been trying to simplify, and I'm trying to convey to the students. So like the panel members said, probably to have a slide or something in the beginning of the class where I would discuss with them what I am going to, or what we are going to look today, and how that would be professionally beneficial for them. Something like that, which keeps them along with me during the class. So that's the main takeaway that I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So I taught 2 courses, both PG level courses. And I think this workshop was a bit like a good recap for me to kind of see what worked and what did not work in my courses, and why it did not work, and how I could kind of potentially make changes in the strategy I am implementing. About what I'm taking back, I felt the learning outcome based kind of design of courses, I felt, and to do as much detailing as possible, I felt I would like to implement that. The second thing was, I think Moodle probably is much more powerful than what I thought, or I mean, it's my ignorance. The other thing I felt was, about industrial visits. I although while doing kind of engineering courses, I myself was benefited, but I didn't kind of think of them while I taught for last 2 semesters. So some engagement where what you teach is put in action, maybe not directly, but some version of it. I think, thanks a lot for organizing this.
Thanks for this workshop. Actually, even I got several inputs. As Avinash mentioned, actually, even I implemented that project-based evaluation last semester, and that was actually quite fruitful. I mean, students actually came up with interesting ideas and different approaches. And apart from that, I also implemented meme-based teaching, because I found that through memes, they are very much engaged in the class. So that is also one thing that I applied. Existing memes, and some I create. Yeah. In fact, there is I think a Facebook group also, IIT meme cell. So yeah. Yeah, since PhD I have been engaged in that, so I'm familiar with the concept and everything. But although assignment is one thing that I haven't figured out yet, because typically whenever we give assignments to large groups, so it's like only handful of students are doing assignments sincerely, and then most of them are copying from them and submitting. So I still am not sure how to get most of the students engage and participate individually.
Yeah, thanks to PPCCLT for organizing this very useful workshop. I think among the many other things, the two key takeaways for me has been first to focus more on the learning outcomes than the syllabi, and also use that or convey that to students to convince them why they need to learn the concepts that they are supposed to learn. So that's one. And the second, I think second key takeaway would be the think, pair, share concept, that I think I'll implement a lot more of that.
First thing that I'll be implementing is the Menti. Second thing that I want to implement is a think, pair kind of stuff. And thirdly, first what Nandita today told, I'll ask them what do they want from the course, and then I'll try to implement them. And each class I'll use those slips so that they anonymously float what they are actually interested in, what went good and what went bad. That's also learning based system. This thing that also I'll try to implement. I'll make sure that it's outcome based rather than this thing is there. That much is what I'm thinking of as of now.
Right. Thank you for enabling this wonderful interaction. So I'm going to mainly try learning based outcomes and pair think share strategy to keep them more engaged. Yeah.
I taught only for one semester, but I had tried taking interim feedback since giving paper slips, taking polls and site visit, and was found extremely useful. From this workshop, I'm going to take about think, share, and think, pair, and share. And one thing, before playing videos, pausing and asking them to think about it and guess something that I have never done, even though I've played videos many times. And emphasizing on learning outcomes to students. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thanks for so many interesting observations from experienced people. So I think I attended this before first time when I was teaching, and I tried to incorporate the learning outcomes. But I also realized that I'm not super well versed in incorporating them all the way, in the sense, even if I'm able to outline what it is that I want the students to do, I'm not sure I'm doing justice to what the assessment is. And that has been, I think, one thing that I've really struggled with in my course, be it a core or electives, to how do I assess and it's fair as to am I asking the question that I've asked them to learn properly. So I'll try to see if I can get better at that bit. And I do think I'll do something with the think, pair, share, which I've asked questions, some activities, but not entirely making them think as much as I would like them to be. So I would think those two, yeah. Even though it's one, but still.
Yeah, I think I listening to people make these points has been more useful than I thought it would be. Even as a learning thing, listening to people say, this is the thing I took away most. I have notes for all of this, but you sort of make notes and you forget, you never look at them again. Asking students in the beginning of the semester, what is it you want to learn and what do you already know? That I tried a project-based course last time. That's the only first time I was teaching. I told them, you pick a paper, ask your guide what you want, what paper should you be able to reproduce, and you reproduce it, I'll pass you in the course. Did not go well for me. Most students dropped out by the end of the course. There were only 2 people left by the end. I don't know if that's because it's too much to expect in one semester to be able to learn. I don't know what the problem was, but I'm hoping implementing some of these things, think about what you're doing, what is it you already know, what do you want to learn from this. I'm hoping the next iteration will be better.
So one of the ways you can give assignment is to tell them not to submit the assignment back to you, and then based on the assignment either give a in-class tutorial where they have to solve, but it's not the same problem, but if they have solved then they should be able to solve, or give it in a quiz. And if you announce upfront in the class that there will be 10 assignments in this course, 40% of the marks for this course will come from that, then individually they will try to learn. They might not solve it first time, but those who solve will teach the others, so they will at least learn. So that is one strategy that one can try.
Okay. I have a couple of cautions. So one is, don't try everything in every class. Okay. So even if you try one idea in one class, it's fine. And the second caution, which is actually more important, is don't spend all your time on teaching. Okay, many of us have done that mistake and we've paid for it. So do maintain the balance between the amount of time you're spending on your research and on your teaching. At the end of the day, you've taught a course.
Okay, so from PPCCLT, a couple of things that we will do. One is all the links that were brought up, shared during the 2 days, the slides for some of the speakers. We'll share it with the group. That was one thing I didn't write this down. The past resources which are relevant, like how do you write learning outcomes at every Bloom's level? We have tons of videos on the channel itself. So we'll collate those. The reason we didn't do these detailed activities, how exactly do you do think, pair, share and all, is because there are all these resources. So videos on how you design outcomes and assessments for every Bloom's level, as well as constructors. I think Sridhar mentioned it yesterday. If you want to write a think, pair, share question, we have it's like a worksheet for the instructor. How do you write the think phase? How should it connect to the pair phase? Similarly, the peer instruction question. Somebody asked me yesterday, how do I write PI question for this topic? So the constructor says that here are 6 different types, 6 different stem of the sentence. Like you can start your question with this stem. If you have a conceptual course, you can do this. If you have a mathematical course, you can do that. So we have these constructors. These are worksheets. So those things we will share.